You're listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline with your hosts, Danielle Cuomo, CEO, and Nicole Gallicchio-elz, COO. We are here to provide you with a vital lifeline to executive advice that you've never heard before. We have the resources and the tactics to help you reach the next level. Whether you are just starting out or you've been in business for decades, listen in for exclusive tips and content to meet your needs. Yet another episode of Not Your Average CEO Lifeline. Today we are talking about dual things and unlocking the secrets to networking success. We're going to be talking to special guest Shara Ruffin in a few minutes, but I wanted to preface it with talking about LinkedIn itself, right? LinkedIn is a wonderful tool that I think is underutilized in the community today. You can use LinkedIn for employment opportunities. I think that's what a lot of people see it as, but it is definitely more than that, right? It is a great networking opportunity to connect one-on-one with people and leverage it in a way that you create a warm community. On an upcoming episode, we're going to talk with AJ Amex about how to create these micro communities and how to really engage with your audience and how that can lead to networking success and growth for your company. So Shara right now is going to talk to us about LinkedIn, what that means and how you can utilize it. And then she's going to talk to us a little bit about networking and growth and advancements towards individual success. But LinkedIn in itself shouldn't be seen as a social platform in which you are spamming and pumping out content and cold messaging. It is something that needs to be addressed in a purposeful way. You should really be talking to individuals with intent. There should be meaningful, boisterous tone and intent behind your messages, whether that's commenting, liking, or sharing. It is something that has to be a one-on-one connection, right? We are all in tune to spam these days. We can spot it a mile away, whether it's an article, an email, a post. AI is pumping out content like crazy. And we have this intuition of what is someone looking to sell us something and be salesy, and then someone that's actually looking to connect with us. And it is really important as technology and AI tools are rapidly taking over that there is an underlying intent behind your messaging and how you do so, specifically with our social platforms. But this episode, we're going to talk about LinkedIn. So let's hear from Shara and Danielle with tips, tricks, statistics on how you can use your LinkedIn and your networking skills to obtain success and grow your audience.
Shara, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really happy to have you here. And I'd love to start by you just telling us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Shara Ruffin. I'm a clinical social worker. I've been in the field for about 20 years. I also have multiple hats that I have. I'm a clinical supervisor. I run a consulting company called Journey to Licensure, which helps social workers pass their board exams. I also do professional development for social workers. I'm also a 5-time Amazon bestselling author. As of yesterday, 2 days ago, I am a top voice for LinkedIn in social work. It's the first time it's ever been done in my field. So I was very excited about that. That just happened Friday. It was mind blowing that I saw that on my LinkedIn. I was like, what? Top voice in social work out of 890 million people on the platform. So I was very excited about that. And I've been in USA Today, LinkedIn News, as well as being a LinkedIn advisor in Success Magazine and Business Insider. So pretty well-rounded. I've been doing a lot. I've been in business for about almost 3 years, hasn't hit 3 years yet. So it's been quite a ride, but I've pretty much been just sharing my story as not just someone that's a social worker, but someone that has experienced mental health for herself and just been sharing that with the world for the last couple of years. So I'll pause there. I'm
Wow,
sure there's a
that's
lot more I
so
could say.
exciting. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on all of that success. That is amazing.
Thank you. I'm still wrapping my head around half of
That's
it.
wonderful.
So,
So as successful as you've been in that space,
mm,
what advice do you have for our listeners who are hoping to use LinkedIn to network?
I would say LinkedIn has been a powerful tool on so many levels. LinkedIn has transformed since it began, I think, about 20 years ago. It's evolved from being a resume type platform, business type platform, to just personal branding. It doesn't look like what it did a couple of years ago when I started. I would say um, find your voice, whatever that looks like to you. When I started on LinkedIn, it was to find a job. Believe it or not, I was a burnt out social worker in 2018 looking to find a job. And it LinkedIn literally pivoted, changed my life in terms of the mentorship, in terms of just going from what I thought was just going to be a thriving career in private practice to something I never thought it would turn into a personal branding journey, and allowing it to pivot my career in a totally different direction. So I would say to people, it really depends on what your goal is on LinkedIn. If you're looking for job opportunities, it's definitely there. I mean, a lot of decision makers are on LinkedIn. There's a lot of money on LinkedIn, but it's a powerful platform in terms of transforming someone's story into a journey in terms of personal branding, in terms of building a business, in terms of finding mentorships, even finding lifelong friends and mentors that I don't think I ever would have got if I wouldn't have had taken that journey to be vulnerable on LinkedIn, and connecting with others. It's definitely a relationship building platform. Whenever people think of LinkedIn, they instantly think of just B2B relationships. And it's definitely that, but also so much more in terms of um, becoming a thought leader in your industry. So much more than just job searching. But yes, everyone should have a LinkedIn page. It's definitely a place where an employer will go to, or a prospective employer will go to. But yes, I would definitely say LinkedIn is a place to be. But if you're going looking for work, you definitely want to make sure your profile is optimized. And optimization looks differently to everyone. You want to make sure that you have a good headline, that you have a good professional headshot, and that you really show your value in terms of your niche or in terms of your industry, especially for those that want to really branch out and be seen. And it's very easy to, because so many people don't post, it's less than 1% on LinkedIn. There's 890 million people on LinkedIn and less
Wow.
than 1% post. And I didn't understand that gravity until little me therapist showed up on there and really um, understood how much impact I had in terms of my own experiences and being able to share them on a platform. So it's it's been amazing. My brain is running like 1,000 miles per minute. I'm trying to slow down in terms of me talking, but yeah, it really depends on what your goal is. It really does. If it's the personal branding or connecting or building relationships, finding mentorships, um, it's definitely the place to do that beyond just looking at employment. But if it's just for employment, you can straight get in contact with employers that way, or even recruiters. It's such a pivotal place, and magical place when you're able to leverage the power that LinkedIn has.
Yeah, that's terrific. And that's a really interesting statistic about just 1% posting. I
Hmm.
was not aware of that. And that is, um,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's definitely very interesting. So do you have a process that you share with your audience about how they can grow and engage more in LinkedIn?
I do. Um, there's so many different ways to do it. It really depends on what you're comfortable with. For me, it was really having a LinkedIn influencer push. She pushed me out on there. I'll never forget her name. She had 1 million followers at the time. I'll never forget. I had 30,000 connections And it was just me. I wasn't showing up on the platform, and I was literally just on there posting about mental health. And I'll never forget, she said, Shar, they don't really know you. You're hiding these pretty mental health posts, which is, I'm glad you have a community. Well, what are you doing? And I didn't understand the leverage of that until I started doing video. And then not everybody, is willing to do video, but video is the fastest way to go, especially that LinkedIn now is really uplifting thought leadership and value posts that educate people. I would say learning to really bring value to your audience consistently is the way to go, but also engaging. I literally grew my following by just engaging others' content. And because it's such a small realm of people that actually create content, engaging is another indirect way of supporting someone else. And believe it or not, they will engage back if you're consistent with it. Giving support, you get that back times 10. So even if you're an introvert, and believe it or not, I am, I'm extrovert when I need to be. But even though my husband says like, you're on like 7 different platforms, how are you an introvert? I was like, I am. But I've had to learn to get more comfortable speaking. But yes, I would say engaging with content is the fastest way to go, but also creating it, what thrills you. What I've literally done so many different things. Danielle. I've fried turkeys on on LinkedIn around Thanksgiving. I'm laughing because a lot of people know me back then from homeschooling my child in pandemic when I had 3 kids to take care of, and I was homeschooling them after failing an exam, and I would constantly show up all types of ways every day, and people would literally go to my page and say, what is Shara doing next with this cute little boy? And I would literally be talking about some of the things I was going through, and I didn't know. I had no idea that what I was doing was building a personal brand on the back end. I was just trying to let people know that even all these letters I have behind my name and all that education, this shiny LinkedIn profile, that I was struggling. And literally a year later after that of constantly posting video, it blew up because people started to trust me. So anything that I did after, because I had that trust, I was able to leverage in that way. But yeah, video is the closest way to go. Carousels are next. But people are really, iffy about video. But my first video was literally talking about how uncomfortable I was. Doing video. That was my first video. Was saying, I was very vulnerable, saying, I'm uncomfortable doing this, but I'm doing this. How many of you guys, can relate to doing something scared and doing it anyway? How did that turn out for you? And then I was able to find my voice and sharing those stories of what I was going through in real time as I was doing them. And it encouraged a lot of other people to do so too. But again, LinkedIn's algorithm, the way it is now, they're really uplifting people that are thought leaders, people that are educating others, and really doing the impact in their particular field. So
yeah, that's terrific. And I really love what you said, about getting started, and how a good way to get started could just be, if you're, intimidated about creating your own content, or that seems just like too big of a mountain to climb, just simply engaging with others' content. And I think that makes it a lot easier.
Oh yeah, especially in the beginning. Yeah.
As an executive, we know that it can be difficult to manage your work-life balance, find time to tackle all the items on that to-do list, or determine next steps to bring your business to the next level. Virtual Assist USA is your solution. Whether you need someone to help you with those daily tasks, or you would like to speak to someone about strategies for the next steps for your business, we are here to help. Find us today at www.virtualassistusa.com to find out what else we can do for you.
Support for today's episode comes from Ruby, the #1 client communication solution for growing businesses. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Ruby creates exceptional experiences for your callers and website visitors. They take messages, screen and transfer calls, schedule appointments, perform new client intake, confirm details with outbound calls, and much more. Just like an in-house receptionist, only better. because they turn every ring into a relationship. It all adds up to more opportunities and more time saved. For more information, visit get.ruby.com/virtualassistusa for up to $150 off your first month of service with Ruby. Imagine you powered by Ruby.
I'd like to shift gears and talk just a little bit about your background in mental health,
Sure.
and how you integrate mindfulness meditation into your clinical practice and your business, and how you've seen it impact the mental well-being of your client.
Oh, wow. So I would probably say my first exposure to mindfulness was when I was an outpatient therapist at a partial hospital program a couple of years back. And at the time, I was going through a very stressful period in my life with having a son that was medically compromised and trying to collect my clinical hours towards my advanced license. And it was just very stressful being a single mother. So I thought, I was like, I need to find something that's going to help me. I talk about my diagnosis all the time. I have generalized anxiety disorder and I have ADHD combined type and a math learning disorder. So, and I talk about them readily because there's such a stigma around when people come to therapy. They think that the therapist has all the answer. And I always used to share with my patients that kind of level that power dynamic, that I'm just as human as you. We're just on two different sides of the fence right now, but I also know what it is to be a patient. And so I'm always someone that's always up to learning. So I decided to get into mindfulness practice at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm in Philadelphia. They have a wonderful program that I fell in love with when I would work a full day and I was 2.5, almost 3 hours away from home and on public transportation, would come back and come into the city. And then for 6 to 8, I would go ahead into the mindfulness meditation program with other professionals. And it was a mind blowing opener about really being in connection with myself and being present with everything around me and what I needed. And the more I fell in love with the practice, the more I was able to alleviate my own anxiety to a degree, but not just, I'm not trying to completely eliminate it, but be more aware of my own internal struggles, as well as some of the dysfunctional behaviors that come out of that. And I was able to bring that into practice with my patients. I would do mindfulness meditation psychoeducation groups, especially for my patients that had long-term mental illness, such as schizophrenia, that were duly diagnosed, and even patients that were had high suicidality and risk for inpatient care. It really helped to give them a perspective of really being in tune with their own emotions, and helping them to kind of just maintain stability at times. But even when they were aware of their reactivity level from day to day, and also for me. So, and I still use it today. I use it a lot with my colleagues. We are the worst patients. So I use it a lot with my colleagues when I'm training them for their exams, doing mindfulness meditation, teaching them depth breath work and walking them through that process, because just because they're a clinician doesn't mean they have the best self-care package. So I provide that for them as much as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really great to hear. And it's interesting that you say that that mental health professionals make the worst patients.
Yes. Doctors too. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our audience, how can they, aim to unlock new opportunities for growth, where they can create an environment where everyone has access to knowledge that leads toward the individual advancement that we're talking about?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I would say it has to start with why you do what you do. And I say that as I'm kind of holding my stress ball in my hand. The audience, of course, is not going to get to see my mindfulness stress ball that says "accept what is." That comes to mind when you said that question. Is really acknowledging what is your purpose, and aligning with, especially as you're cultivating that journey, and knowing that it's going to change over time. when I think about my own journey that started in social work 20 years ago, um, I never would have thought I would be where I am with respect to my field in a non-traditional way. That you really have to hone in on what is it that you want out of your journey and be willing to grow as you go, and keep your mindset open to learning, and know that you can create and cultivate your own ecosystem, but you're going to fight with the fear. I still do every and most people don't believe that now, but every step that I take, is this podcast that I just put out going to be successful? I remember in February I launched my own podcast, but I was scared. I was like, who's going to listen to this? It's now up to like 90 episodes, and I've had so much, yeah, so much success with helping social workers, and they're like, oh, I've listened to this. I'll come back like, I passed my exam because I listened to your tips and your strategies like from the podcast. And it's every time I've had a fear, I'll do it anyway, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I've learned something from it. I think those are some of the lessons that when I hear your question of how do we cultivate learning in our spaces, is that we have to be willing to be the student at all times as well as the teacher. I think those things go hand in hand, and that collaboration is important as well as seeking help when you need it, knowing that you can't do everything. That's something I also had to struggle with in the very beginning of my business, is learning how to delegate, and letting go of control, and really honing in on what is it that I want to give, what type of impact do I want to leave. And I think that's what people should focus on the most, because the money, it'll come, but your passion, your why has to be anchored when it gets hard, because it will.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, the name of our podcast is Not Your Average CEO, and that's why we brought you on the podcast, because we feel like you step outside of the box. What would you say has been your strongest influence as a business owner?
Wow. I pull inspiration from anything I can get my hands on, whether it's listening to Tony Robbins or Lisa Nichols or influential people, but mostly I pull the inspiration from the people that I work with every day, my colleagues, because oftentimes, at least in my line of work, people probably don't know my story as much. I'll kind of recap it very quickly. My company, Journey Licensure, was born from my 10-year decade of getting a license that takes 2 years. It takes 2 years. It took me a decade. And that pivotal journey of sharing that, of having a stillborn daughter, of going through a bad military divorce, of having a medically compromised child who almost died at 6 months, and was told that he was going to live beyond a year, and he's now almost 10 next year. Going through having to rebuild my life after a divorce, becoming a single mom, when I was supposed to have the happily ever after, and really having to come to terms with, how do I navigate this while I am building with this now this little boy that I have to take care of, dealing with depression, almost giving up my son for adoption, failing my first board exams many years ago by 3 points, taking it again 2 years later, grappling with diagnosis of ADHD and generalized anxiety disorder, dealing with mental health stigma, losing everything and then gaining again. It was a journey for me that really put in perspective that when I talk to my clients, I'm talking to my past self, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to hold that space for them in such a way has brought me to this place that I am now. So when I think about my legacy, the impact I leave, it's when I see a social worker or a mom or a parent or someone that is really struggling with passing a board exam or just with life in general, and seeing them make it to the other side, seeing that transformation, That's what I want to leave. So I'm not sure if that answered your question. I kind of like went everywhere. But in listening to that question, that's kind of where I started reflecting upon my own journey, which was very traditional. It started out, but very unconventional in terms of the lessons I was able to pull to utilize to help the people that I felt that my experiences could help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing everything as well. My last question to you would be where we can find you, where the audience can learn more about you, where they can engage with you.
I would say every available platform. I'm on Threads, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Of course, I have my podcast on every available podcast platform, Clubhouse, TikTok. I'm on every popular platform that's out there. So you can just put in my name in Google and a lot of stuff pops up. I am all there. So it shouldn't be too hard to find me now.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and we'll include all of those links as well in our show notes so that you can reach out to Shara as well. Well, Shara, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. And we look forward to seeing all the new and great things you do soon.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate being on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline with your hosts Danielle Cuomo, CEO, and Nicole gallicchio-elz, COO. This podcast has been sponsored by Virtual Assist USA. If you'd like to know more about the hosts or exploring virtual assistant services, visit virtualassistusa.com for more information.